Arrangements for holding the 1966 Seven Nations Conference in Manila were completed. An enthusiastic crowd gathered to welcome the visitors. President Ferdinand E. Marcos welcomed the heads of states or government of the 6 other nations actively engaged with the Philippines in the defense of South Vietnam. First to arrive was the delegation from the Republic of Vietnam. This delegation included Chairman of the National Leadership Committee of the Republic of Vietnam, Nguyen Van Thieu, and Premier Nguyen Cao Ky. Encouraged by the success of the recent free elections in which more than 80% of the eligible voters took part, in spite of violent Viet Cong opposition, their leaders and their delegation came to Manila in search of a formula for peace without the sacrifice of their national independence and freedom. As were all of the national leaders, Park Chung-hee, President of the Republic of Korea, was received with full military honors. From the depths of his experience, it is President Park's expressed conviction that building a strong wall of collective defense among free nations is the only way to contain the ambitions of Red China in its behind-the-scenes move for the power control of the nations of Southeast Asia. The leader of another nation deeply committed to freedom, Lyndon Baines Johnson, President of the United States, saw America's role in a new emerging Asia as that of a neighbor among equals, a partner in bringing peace, order, and progress to a part of the world where half of the human race lives. Harold Holt, Prime Minister of Australia, by word, thought, and action, has long made it clear that Australia would continue to fight communist aggression, be it directed or disguised as a war of national liberation. These firm views are fully shared by Keith Holyoake, Prime Minister of New Zealand. It is his stated view that the Manila Conference offered a necessary and timely means for reviewing the many recently suggested ways in which Asian countries might get peace talks for Vietnam underway with Hanoi's participation. Prime Minister Tanom Kittikachorn headed the delegation from Thailand. His views reflected the carefully calculated position taken in the self-interest of the people of his nation. He recently stated, "As much as we would like to see a peaceful settlement of the difficulties, we can hardly be in favor of a peace that smacks of surrender to communist aggression or that wipes out the independence of a free nation." Enthusiastic crowds welcomed the delegations as they drove down scenic Rojas Boulevard to their summit quarters at the historic Manila Hotel. En route, the delegates paused to pay respect to a martyred Philippine leader, Jose Rizal, who in 1896 died on the spot marked by his monument, an early freedom fighter whose death foretold his nation's freedom. The next day, the Seven Nations Conference would convene. The representatives of 7 nations met in the Congress to take what was termed by the president of the host nation a step toward a negotiated peace. Conspicuously missing from this lineup of leaders of nations involved in Vietnam were representatives of Hanoi and Peking. The leaders of the 7 other countries most directly involved in Vietnam were there with their advisors to talk of the possibilities of achieving the stability of peace in Southeast Asia. True, it takes 2 sides to talk peace, and here once again, the efforts to end war in Vietnam were unmistakably one-sided. Prime Minister of Thailand, Tanom Kittikachorn, served as temporary chairman.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a signal honor as representative from Thailand to have been chosen temporary chairman of this historic meeting.
To the eldest, Prime Minister Holyoake of New Zealand, fell the privilege of nominating the permanent chairman.
May I say how much we've appreciated the very warm welcome and the hospitality already extended to us. It is because of his capacity, his enthusiasm, and his imagination that I, on behalf of the other heads of government assembled here, have very great pleasure, and I count it an honor, to nominate President Ferdinand Marcos as chairman of this conference.
I now invite His Excellency, the President of the Philippines, to take the chair and deliver his welcome address. Thank you.
The 8 delegates' unanimous choice for the chairmanship was the President of the Republic of the Philippines, Ferdinand E. Marcos.
As chairman of the Manila Summit Conference of 1966, it is my pleasure to assume this position by the unanimous consent and approval of the members of this conference. I extend my thanks and the gratitude of my people to the Prime Minister of New Zealand for his generous remarks, and to the other members of this conference for their unanimity.
President Marcos delivered the opening address.
Today, the 7 nations here gathered have come to raise their voice for more food for the needy, for enlightenment for the illiterate, and for the cure of the sick, as well as for peace.
All early indications pointed to a continuing unity of purpose and action by the participants in this historic conference, a unity based on a community in freedom. Nguyen Van Thieu, South Vietnam Chief of State, assured the conference of the willingness of the people of his nation to seize military action.
The duration of the communist aggression itself, we are longing for peace. We are longing for peace, and war and peace is in the hand of the aggressors. The Vietnamese delegation, Prime Minister Nguyen Cao Ky and myself, we are here to repeat that we nurture no love for war and entertain no desire of conquering or destroying any country or government.
And so ended the first session of the 7 Nations Conference. The rest of the meetings were closed working sessions where problems would be defined and solutions sought. The closed meetings of the 2-day conference were held at Malacañang. The site of these closed conferences was the reception room of the presidential residence on the banks of the Pasig River. Friendly but serious discussions followed formal reports as top advisors from the 7 nations met with their opposite numbers to outline the form and substance of an understanding between friends and of a warning to enemies bent on continuing a deadly aggression. Their ladies explored the scenic wonders of the area of Taal volcano and the archaeological sites revealing Philippine history. The occasion would be preserved with a memorial plaque in Freedom Plaza. Dedicated in spite of a gentle rain. The memories of the social festivities that followed the close of the conference would be warm and enduring for the leaders as well as their wives. For traditional Philippine hospitality, as reflected in a fluvial parade on the Pasig River and a barrio fiesta on the grounds of Malacañang, is something that no one can easily forget, even a president or a prime minister. But this was all but a diverting bonus to the serious side of the conference. Their variety of views expressed, it was found there was total consensus on matters of vital concern to the entire world as well as to the community of Asian nations. Determination incorporated into a joint communique was signed by the chief delegate from each nation. It stated in part these goals of freedom.
We, the 7 nations gathered in Manila, declare our unity, our resolve, and our purpose in seeking together the goals of freedom in Vietnam and in the Asian and Pacific areas. They are to be free from aggression, to conquer hunger, illiteracy, and disease, to build a region of security, order, and progress, to seek reconciliation and peace throughout Asia and the Pacific. These are the goals of freedom.
Would these plans and hopes succeed? Only time can tell, for it takes 2 to talk peace. The offer of the reconciliation has been made. The next move is up to others. One conclusion is unmistakable. There is a total consensus of policy and action uniting the 7 nations actively engaged in fighting aggression in Vietnam. Among the many who reported to the conference was General William C. Westmoreland of the United States Command in Vietnam.
And free world military assistance troops in Vietnam are there to support the armed forces and the people of Vietnam in their struggle against communist aggression. The commanders and troops of the several nations are working together in coordination and harmony that is unprecedented in history. Their successes on the battlefield attest to their morale, fighting spirit, and professionalism. But with our interest in this international effort, there may be a tendency to lose sight of the fact that the major burden of the war is still being borne by the armed forces of the Republic of Vietnam. The Vietnamese regular and paramilitary forces and police are fighting daily against the insurgent enemy and aggressors. They fight to provide security for their people and protection for installations so important to the life of a nation, any of which may be the next target for enemy attack or sabotage. These are the forces which fight the forgotten war day after day. They have been fighting for over a decade. They will continue to fight until the people of their country can be free to work for a better future for themselves and their children.